Okay. Hello, YouTube. Hi, welcome in. So the first question I have right now is when people ask themselves, is this abuse? Is it then? My thing is that we need to go with our gut feeling. Now, not everything is abuse, and a lot of times we have people who, hold on, let me say this. Not everyone is abusive, and a lot of times we have people who have abusive tendencies who aren't abusive, and they're accidentally doing these things because they have poor communication skills and they have attachment wounds and things like that. In fact, 2 weeks ago, my podcast episode, my podcast, It's Not All Rainbows. Um, I talked about, is this attachment versus abuse, and so I talk about some of the differences in how you can tell whether it's abuse or attachment, um, and and so maybe that might be something that might be helpful for you to listen to. But at the end of the day, if you are wondering if someone's abusing you, it's probably not a safe place for you to be, even if it is attachment issues. We don't have to tolerate that. Even if we're married, like, you can make some changes and be like, hey, yo, until you get some better, communication skills, like, I can't live like this. I'm going to be sleeping in the other room or something like that. I don't know, whatever works for you. But you know what? Our gut is correct. If we are Googling things, if we when we start googling, is this abuse, what does this behavior mean, things like that, that's a big sign. I never googled abusive behaviors when I was married to my ex-husband. I never googled that when I was with anyone else. So pay attention to that. That can be very, very helpful. I know as survivors of abuse and childhood emotional neglect and all that stuff, it's very difficult for us to trust our own instincts. So you're kind of like, wait, how am I supposed to trust this? um, but yeah, thank you for the question. Husband lying constantly to me, then turns on me, and I'm called a stalker, and so on. Hi, CJ, welcome in. Um, so that is not a good situation to be in. It can be very difficult, obviously, when you're in a situation where someone is lying, cheating, any abusive behaviors, and what happens is, um, they end up doing all this stuff, and we end up becoming really insecure. We're jealous. We're checking their phone, we're wondering where they're at, we're, asking for their location, things like this, we're catching them in lies. Like, you become paranoid, you become somebody who you don't recognize. Like, once you're out looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I act like this. Like, I was so insecure and I was so jealous and I was so like, I anytime that they were away from me, I was like, are they cheating on me? They're probably cheating on me. I was very insecure. Again, I don't like to compare, and I wasn't happy in my marriage, but never, not one time when my husband was away for months at a time, he's in the military, was like, he's probably cheating on me. Like, if he would have cheated on me, I would have been like, oh, damn, okay, well, I didn't see that coming, because I wasn't insecure when I was in that relationship. I wasn't I never one time checked his phone. Like, we had each other's phone passwords. Like, if we were driving in the car and he was like, look up some food, and his phone was the first, like, I'd grab it and open it and like whatever. But I never went through his emails, his text messages, his internet history, anything like that. Cause again, I wasn't insecure. And then all of a sudden I'm in this abusive relationship where really early on, they're setting you up to be jealous of their exes. They're setting you up to be jealous, insecure. They say things about your body, all this stuff. So you're just this insecure mess. And when you're on the other side, hopefully you've done some healing and you don't feel like that anymore. You don't recognize how you felt. But what can happen is, again, you're the crazy one, you're the bad one, because you're catching them out on these behaviors. So it's not a good way to live. It's not, obviously, you know this because you're sharing this here. Nobody deserves to live like that. Like, we all deserve to be safe in our relationships and not have to wonder if someone is cheating. Um, and also, obviously, being cheated on is not safe. It's not safe for your body if someone is lying and doing things behind your back. Did you at one point think you were the abusive one? I never thought I was the abusive one, but I thought I was the problem. I thought that I was the one causing all the issues in the relationship. In fact, I have video from me in a live. I kind of wish that I had more, just because there's so much that shows where I was at the time, where I say something like, yeah, I have really high standards. I try to hold you to a high standard. I'm really hard to love. When, really, I was saying, like, I'm the one over here doing all this work to change and fight for our relationship and stuff. And my abuser just doesn't say anything at all. Because you do end up feeling like you're the problem. I will say that there were times that, like, yeah, like, I would yell, I would say things I didn't mean. I would, like, I was so insecure. I would call a bunch of times, all this stuff that if someone did that to me, I would be like, whoa, not okay, right? Now here, I'm almost 2 years, broken up with him. Um, and so, yeah, it's really easy for them to get in our heads and convince us that we're the abusive one, or we have a personality disorder, we have this mental health disorder or struggle. And a lot of us do. Like, it's okay if you have XYZ. Most people have mental health struggles. Um, but they will absolutely make you feel like those things, it's your fault and you are the abusive one. Hello, I pray things work out in a positive way. I truly mean that. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but thank you. What else? Y'all are asking some really good questions right off the bat today, and I'm really liking this. So keep them coming. Sometimes we start off really sort of quiet, and then, like, right when it's time for me to go, I get a lot of really good questions. But so far, we're in a really good swing of things today. I haven't been live for a very long time because I've been really present. We've been traveling. We've been really busy. There hasn't really been, like, I had pictured that there would be like an ideal time for me to go live, and I would go live once a week or something like that. But that really hasn't happened. And we're now getting to the end of our trip. We just have like really days left. And I'm going right back to work. And if you don't know this, when I'm at work, I usually go live on my work break. So I will be live much more when I get back to the States, I'm sure. But yeah. Oh, such a good question. Okay. How will you talk about the abuse with any potential new partners when you start dating again? Thank you so much for that question. Um, so I do not date. I am, just so everybody here knows, I am almost, like I said, almost 2 years single, not quite 2 years, no contact. And I'm single by choice, and I love being single. And so I can't imagine wanting to date anyone anytime soon. But I have talked about this again on the podcast. I talk about, I've probably talked about this a lot because this is something that's really important to me. Taking relationships slowly, starting new relationships can feel really good, and we get caught up in them, and we want to talk all the time, and we want to, like, you start sharing and you're like, oh, you're easy to talk to, and you start sharing all this stuff. As survivors of abuse, one, we can very easily fall back into it if we're not aware, and two, through no fault of our own, and two, when we're starting a new connection with someone, it's prime time for them to get that information from you to use it against you later. Like I said, I have an episode, it's at least a year old, and it's called Don't Give an Abusive Person a Guidebook to Your Abuse. Because what happens is when we tell someone, like, for example, if we start dating, me and you, Emmy, and I say, hey, early on, just so you know, I got out of an abusive relationship like a year ago. It was really horrible. It's going to be really hard for me to trust. That person, if they're abusive, if they are a coercive controller, because that is the term I use now since I try to avoid buzzwords, they're going to take that information and they're going to say, oh my goodness, you are so safe with me. I don't know how anyone can abuse someone. I would never do that. I'm here for you. Tell me more. What did they do? What were the things they did? And they're going to use that against you later. That's that guidebook that we don't want to hand to them. So what I would do, and this is the same thing with friends. When I meet new friends, which isn't very often because I'm very selective about people and I'm really enjoying I am not isolated. I am not reclusive, but I'm very selective about who I choose to spend my time with. My nervous system has to be very calm around you. I don't want to feel like I can't be my whole self with you. But when I do meet someone, it's like, yeah, I was in an abusive relationship, and, I do still have struggles from that. And I would like to share more with you when I know you better. So you can be upfront and you can say that you've been through XYZ, but you can also very much say, I'm not giving you all this information right now because I don't freaking know you. And the other thing is that I'm going to see if I can find, because I feel like there was another time that I was talking about this recently, just in case that this would be helpful for you. But the other thing is that we do feel like there's so much pressure to, again, move quickly, not just in relationships, but friendships. And a lot of times we feel really desperate to be seen. Maybe we haven't had a really awesome friendship for a while, so we're like ready to get that information up front. And we feel like if we don't do it quickly, that we're not actually connecting. That connection has to happen fast, or it's not authentic, right? Like when we're talking about relationships, we want that spark, we want that chemistry. When in reality, sorry to break it to you, we want someone who's respectful of our time and our space and our boundaries. And like if I start feeling, which I won't now, I swear to you, I will not. If I start feeling like this undeniable pull towards someone, I'm going to be like, damn, this person is probably abusive and I'm probably drawn to it because I still have healing to do. And I'm going to catch myself right now and I'm not going to do it. I hope that makes sense. They say if you grew up in a narcissistic household, you'll live forever with that type of person unless you heal first. I feel like that is a very huge possibility because no matter what you grow up with, whether it's narcissistic or neglectful or whatever, I recommend a book called Running on Empty. I can't remember the name of the author. I'm doing a lot of Googling right now. So Running on Empty is a book about childhood emotional neglect. And she talks about Dr. Jonice Webb. She talks about the different kinds of childhood emotional neglect that we can experience. Now, there's the narcissistic parent. There's the bereaved parent. There's the workaholic parent or the addicted parent, whatever they're addicted to, whatever reason they're not present with their children. There's the well-meaning but traumatized themselves parent, which I feel like both of my parents were that. And so what happens is we do end up quite often connecting with people who feel the same. And I did not know that, like you said, unless you heal first. I did not know that until I was, I have been in multiple not amazing relationships, not all abusive. I've had several that, yeah, luckily I was able to get out of them before they went to the point that this last one did. But I have had some that they just weren't amazing because it's two people with trauma, childhood emotional neglect, and all that stuff. And really, what I've done my whole life is I'll tell you a story. 10, 12 years ago, I had the most amazing partner. He was the best. I was very happy with him. I was very loved. I was very supportive. I was very calm during that period of time. I was very respectful to him. There was no drama. And I broke up with him. And at the time, I had a lot of excuses. I was like, well, he's young. He's younger than me. He's still in college. I just graduated. He needs to be able to live. He needs to be able to experience. Like, I got the chance to do this and that. I want him, I want that for him too. And it wasn't until I was with my abuser that I was like, you idiot. No, I wouldn't go back in time. No, I wouldn't. Like, we would have broken up at some point anyway. If you don't know, I'm a lesbian. So I would have eventually been like, hopefully I would have figured it out. I don't know. You never know, like the twists and turns of life. But it was during that time that I was like, yeah, you broke up with him because you were bored, because you didn't know how to be treated well, because when you were a child, you were desperately seeking approval, validation, love. You wanted to be chosen by this parent, that sister, whatever. Like I was always trying to earn love. And so I was then looking for that next person who had to earn love from. And I have chosen since then a lot of emotionally unavailable partners. Again, either abusive or simply very closed off and literally inaccessible. Not necessarily abusive, but just like brick wall, not accessible past like the first couple of weeks. Because avoiding people can be accessible for a little bit until it gets really vulnerable. And then they're like, I gotta shut this down. Portcullis is getting dropped. I really like history, so we're going to do that portcullis thing. And so all of that to say that absolutely yes, until we heal that pain, those childhood emotional neglect wounds, we are probably subconsciously seeking out to repeat those patterns. And that is very much what I was doing throughout my life. Again, I discovered that when I was with my abuser because yes, I discovered what I was really doing when I broke up with that boyfriend. And I also discovered that I was repeating the chasing after my mother's love with my abuser. And I was like, you're not my mom. I need to take away this power from you because this is really messed up and I don't want this. And I will not repeat that again. I know that's easier said than done. And, people can catch us off guard. I've seen people who are very educated in narcissistic abuse and coercive control. I've seen them have, started a relationship and have been fooled. And of course they get out of it, but they have been fooled. I don't date, so I have not been fooled, but it's, anyone can be fooled. It can happen to anyone, but I will still say it's not going to happen to me because I'm not letting it happen. Oh, you guys are asking such amazing questions today. Hello. Hi, Lamy. Do you ever look back at the abusive relationship and think, maybe it wasn't that bad? Yes. So this is cognitive dissonance. And it can happen at any time. It can happen any place. It can happen way far removed from that. Um, sorry. Um, And so, like, when I experienced, so when I first left, I experienced extreme cognitive dissonance, which again is like two competing thoughts in your brain that cannot be true at the same time. So you're just in this fog, right? Because your brain is telling you that was horrible. I needed to get out of there. They almost unalived me, whatever. And the other part is like, oh my God, I'm making this up. I'm crazy. I'm so dramatic, blah, 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 because that's what they've been telling you this whole time. And also, it's really confusing and it doesn't seem real. And when you try to tell other people about it, they're like, I'm not sure that's really what was happening, right? And so when I first left, it was so strong that I actually reached out to someone who had known my ex in the past and got a similar story from them, the same story from them. So that helped me a lot to be able to be like, dig deep. You are not crazy. You are not wrong. Keep doing this. What can happen now? Again, almost 2 years removed from them, is that I'll have this little flash of like, they can't have been that bad. This little flash. And I think that it's still the fact that as people who are not abusive, we don't want that to be true. We don't want it to be true that people can be that horrible. At least that's my thought. Like when I have that, I very quickly am able to be like, no, it was. But it makes sense that we have those thoughts. It is very confusing. And for me, like the more that I'm removed from it, the more that I won't say that it's like it's fading and it like those things are still very vivid for me. Um, things that did happen. And so it's not like, oh, I'm forgetting it. And also I'm out here talking about it. I'm out here sharing with all of you. I'm out here hopefully helping people to understand, the things that they're going through as well. But yeah, of course we have those moments. Like I said, we don't want to believe that people are that horrible, but unfortunately they are. I always think that when I leave. Yeah, it's really hard. But I had a good childhood. Lammy, me, I got fooled. I'm still working through it. Did you have a good childhood? You don't have to say more. You don't have to tell us about your childhood here. I have met a lot of people who say that they've had a good childhood. Um, I'm not trying to have like this crazy therapy breakthrough for you and ruin your life right now because maybe you really did have a good childhood. A lot of people who read the book, listen to the audiobook, Running on Empty. She talks about that. She talks about having a good childhood. A lot of people dissociated through their childhood. I don't remember my childhood. Ask me anything. I don't remember my childhood. Um, I floated through it, I guess. Um, and or people who like I'm just gonna say like my abuser always told me they had a really good childhood, and so I don't like to give like specifics about like my abusers like personal whatever because it's not about them, but um, like they were provided for, they were able to do activities and things like that, but emotionally they were not provided for, which means they didn't have a good childhood, right? They were remembering the things that their parents did for them, the vacations, the clothes, the toys, whatever, but they had forgotten, they had dissociated slash deleted the fact that literally no one was there for them ever, which is horrible. Um, and so that can be what leads to a lot of our trauma is that we have forgotten the fact that like I'll tell you right now, my dad was incredible. My dad was amazing. My dad was very loving. He was very affectionate. And also, he was a Vietnam veteran with extreme PTSD that we didn't know or understand. He had a lot of issues. And it wasn't until, again, in the last year or so that I stopped. And, I'm almost 36 years old. And I said, damn, my dad was probably not emotionally available to me a lot of the time. He was in, one foot in this world and one foot in whatever world that he was able to escape from his pain, right? So maybe, there were times that he played with us, of course, and I do remember like little glimpses or we have pictures of those things, but his brain might have been floating around in a book or a movie or wherever, whatever felt good for him. which makes sense. That's all he had to cope with. Because again, at the time he passed away in 2001, weren't talking about PTSD back then. So that's an example. And that was very hard for me to be able to accept that because my dad did pass away. So I had created, like, as a child, I was 13, this like idealized version of my dad being this perfect human. And my poor mom left here and I'm like, you're so flawed. She is, I am, he was, right? We all are. But I was able to have now have this compassion for my dad when I had this moment and be like, yeah, you were doing the best with what you had. And both of my parents were. So I'm still working through it. What's up from Philly? We also have to try. Sorry, these shorts are like really built up right here and it's very uncomfortable. I don't understand what they're doing. Okay. We also have to trust the signs our bodies give us. I've learned this after my abusive relationship. Very difficult to trust the signs, right? Because like I said, we're survivors of many, many things. And we have been trained to not listen to our intuition. So it can be very hard to do that. But absolutely, as we start healing and learning, we do start to pay attention to our gut, our heart, our physical signs and things that we're having going on in our bodies, and being able to follow that. If you like poetry, check me out. Everything you're talking about is what I talk about. Oh, thanks. Right about. I'll check it out. I just can't make sense of it. I understand that. I think it's hard to believe someone you loved and opened up to is that horrible. Absolutely. And that makes sense. It's very hard to accept that, and it's very hard to understand it. I just actually recorded a podcast episode talking about that, talking about healing and forgiveness. It probably won't be released for like 3 weeks or so, but definitely check it out in a couple weeks if you remember. I do talk about that process. I'm not there yet. I'm only 3 months removed from our separation as far as like ideal marriage. My marriage is already ruined. Eee. What do you tell your child if they ask where the person is and why did they leave? I did have to do that because my abuser is not my child's other parent. He was 3 at the time, so he was very little. And I am very lucky that I do have a platform. I had like 18,000 followers on Instagram when I left. And I just went in my stories and I was like, if anyone is a child psychologist, a child play therapist, a child, anything about, psychosocial, emotional development type stuff, please give me some advice. And they both gave me very similar options. And so I don't know how old your child is, but we talked about how, not everyone is safe for us to be around, emotionally, mentally, and how we want to be around people who make us feel safe and loved. And basically I was like, this person wasn't very nice to mommy. And so I just said that. And I didn't say anything about what he went through because I don't want him to remember that. He might someday say something, how you just like remember stuff. But he's done very well with it. And he'll say things like, if it ever comes up, which it doesn't very often, he'll say, their parents really should have taught them how to be kind to other people. And I say, I know, buddy. I wish that had been the case. I think my wife had the horrible childhood, and I tried to show her a good marriage and respect and treat her as an equal, and it never seemed good enough. That's the problem. Like a lot of times with trauma and with abusive people, or just, toxic people, or people who can't have healthy connections, we want to fix them, we want to heal them, and it doesn't work like that. You can just, again, I had that boyfriend and he was incredible, and he showed me love and grace and patience and kindness and beautiful whatever. He was incredible. And I left because I was like, okay, I'm bored. I need someone to treat me like shit because that's all I know. And so, again, nobody can fix this but ourselves. We can have incredible support. We can have love. We can be shown all the things, but we are the ones who have to do our healing to make that choice. She has to want to feel better. She has to want to stop living this way. And a lot of people are not aware that they're unhappy, or they know that they're unhappy, but they don't understand why. And they're unable to see it for what it is. And they project and they push out and they say, it's your fault. This marriage ended because of you. Relatable as someone who lost their dad at 10. Oh, I'm so sorry. It sucks. It sucks so bad. It's been 21 years now. It was 21 years in May, and like it's really hard when you have kids. Like my sisters, there's 4 of us, and we all have kids now. There's 8 grandchildren for him, and he never got to meet them, and he would have been an incredible grandpa. And it sucks. They're missing this person in their lives, and they'll never, like, we talk about him and we remember him. And on the day that he passed and on his birthday, we have ice cream, and he'll ask me why. And I said, well, he really liked this, and we're going to remember him today. And he's like, okay, but it's hard. It's very hard. As a vet, I hate that Vietnam vets did not get the help they needed. Thank you so much for saying that. It sucks. It sucks knowing that, like, my dad came home and, like, obviously it's a very different world war from World War II, but the World War II vets, the people who raised them, were heroes. And then these guys who, like, didn't ask for any of this, they came home and they were called other things that I'm not going to say here. And, they did not get support. This is like a whole other topic, but I believe that my dad passed away due to exposure to Agent Orange. Like, he had this health problem, this one. Everything stems back to Vietnam. And maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, I don't know, but he wasn't helped. He was a diabetic, he had heart problems, he had all this stuff, and he passed away because of those complications, and nobody helped him. He didn't have health insurance, he couldn't afford his diabetes medication, he couldn't, insulin, test strips, none of that stuff, and he's dead, and there's no reason for it. Like, obviously things happen, but I fully believe that it was traced back to that, and he should have had help. He should have had help. He served our country, and they're promised that, like, if you serve the country, you'll get this, this, and that. But a lot of veterans are just cast aside when we're done with them. Not me personally. I would never do that. I'm going to therapy now because his wife said I am narcissistic, condescending, have anger, violence issues. I don't want to be like that. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about therapy on Twitter, and I really hope that you are with a therapist who is safe, who understands abuse, who understands trauma. I've been really encouraging people to interview their therapists. I'm not anti-therapy, but I'm anti-not trauma-informed therapy, because therapists can do a lot of damage. Not just therapists, people out here. If you're listening to me and I'm telling you something that doesn't sit right with you, X out, go away, block me, don't ever listen to me again. If it's something that you feel like might harm you, and again, a lot of times we don't know how to trust our guts when it comes to this kind of thing, run for the hills, right? That goes for anybody. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet now. The same goes with therapists. If you're sitting with a therapist and the therapist is, something is going against what you're really feeling, no. Okay, I'm behind on YouTube comments. Kiara, are you still here? I don't think you are. I missed a bunch of comments. Is it wrong that I believed I felt genuinely loved at some point in my abusive relationship? It's not wrong. It makes sense. I feel like a lot of people struggle with that because the love bombing phase is so intoxicating and it feels very real. You feel like you're falling in love. It feels like fate. It's beautiful. You're on this pedestal. And, sometimes that whole phase can happen again throughout the relationship. There could be a month or there could be a couple of weeks where that love bombing is coming on strong and it feels like they're genuinely changed and trying and that they love you. And so it's not bad and it's not your fault. It's just that they have done a very good job of selling you this lie. And so one of the things that can help with moving on is accepting that was an abuse tactic and that was just all part of it. I asked her to go. I told her a therapist can give her tools. I couldn't to help her. She didn't want to. Yeah, that's very common with abusive people. I can remember my abuser saying, "This is who I've always been. I don't want to change." Things like that. They're very stuck in her ways, in their ways, and they're very, they very much think that they're right and everyone else is wrong. So you can't help people who don't want to heal. You were really helping me. Thanks. You're very welcome. Like, was any of it real? If it's a genuinely abusive relationship and you have experienced coercive control in any form, none of it was real. And I know that can be very hard to heal. I remember, like, the moment that it dawned on me, like, it's like a blow. It's like you're getting hit by a wrecking ball because you're like, oh my God, none of it was real. And I believed it was. And what the heck? And why did that happen? And what the amount of time I wasted. And I'm such a fool. But also, it's like, I don't know, like you're draining an abscess or something and you can just let it all spill out and move on. Obviously, it doesn't happen that quickly. Like, you're not like drained. Okay, I don't feel that anymore. But for me, it was such this release to be like, okay, it wasn't real. So I don't have to grieve for a person that it feels like I'm losing. I don't have to grieve for a relationship that I feel like I'm losing because it wasn't real. I can focus on trying to go no contact and break the trauma bond and stuff like that and move forward on my healing and let go of this person who was literally just like, I mean, it's like this. Let's say that you are on the set of Titanic while they're filming and you meet Jack Dawson and you're there and you're hanging out with Jack Dawson. He's not a real person. He's not really there. It's Leonardo DiCaprio, right? That's the real person, but it can be very convincing. So you're like, yeah, I met Jack Dawson. Like I met this guy who was on the Titanic. I'm obsessed with history, and I was listening to a podcast about Band of Brothers, which is about World War II soldiers, from D-Day to whatever. Anyway, so I'm listening to this podcast, and the actors are talking about their experience on the show because I went to Bastogne, Belgium, which is where the Battle of the Bulge was, because I'm a nerd. My dad, again, was a veteran. He was in the 101st Airborne. This is 101st Airborne. I was like, I want to go there. I'm going to take my son. We're going to go check this out. And the actors are talking about how people will come up to them who have seen Band of Brothers and thank them for their service. And the actors are like, no, you want to thank Bill Garnier, who's not here. You want to thank Dick Winters, who's not here. You want to thank all these people who are not here. But it can feel really real. You see these actors and you're like, that's not them. Like they're actors, right? I don't know, whatever. I hope that that's a really helpful sort of way to think about it, is that like that person was essentially acting and that person was delivering you this role or these multiple roles throughout their relationship. And they sold it to you because they're very convincing. And so, I don't know, maybe it helps to think of it that like this person was on stage, they were in their costume, they were delivering their best show, and that it wasn't real, right? The movie Titanic is not real. The Titanic did sink. Rose and Jack were not on the Titanic. They're made up fictional characters. They weren't really there. We've never met them. We don't know them. I like her. She's pretty blunt with me. Good. Really, what does it cost to do a one-on-one session with you? I don't feel comfortable saying it because I don't like asking people for money. Obviously, I will if you book a session with me. I've worked really hard to get here, and I want to offer you a valuable service. But you can find all the information on thelindsaygoodman.com, or you can go directly to calendly.com/thelindsaygoodman.com, and you can see the different packages that I have available and the prices and all the information, my availability. It's all there. So if you want to book with me, that is there. And I can also answer any questions about coaching that you might have. I am now accepting new clients because I am wrapping up my my travel, which has been kind of hectic and it's been kind of hard to like consistently do anything at all, which I'm grateful for. I really needed this time, and I'm really glad that I've been able to enjoy it and be present with my son. My fondest memory was building sandcastles with my father. That was until my mom took the urn away. Okay. I'm guessing there's no convincing a narcissist that they are. I hate that. There's no convincing a narcissist that they are a narcissist. And I definitely don't encourage anyone to tell. So if you suspect that someone is abusive in any way, do not tell them that. Do not tell them, you're gaslighting me. You're trying to gaslight me. You're trying to manipulate me. You're a narcissist. You're abusive, whatever, because they're going to take those things and they're going to put it back on you. They're going to try to figure out what those words mean if they've never heard of them, and they are going to diagnose you as a narcissist, as having BPD, as this, as that. They are going to twist it back onto you. Or I remember I told my abuser, I was like, I've been researching this, and I think you might be a narcissist. And they said, don't tell me I'm something I'm not. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. But it can be very dangerous. They can get very angry. They can get very agitated because they probably know that they're horrible people. And they also have to be seen as perfect. They don't want anyone to see the mask off, to anyone to understand who they really are. And so it can be very dangerous. And it's not worth your time. If someone is a narcissist, spend your energy. If someone is abusive, spend your energy trying to work your way out of that relationship rather than trying to make them see them for who they really are. As long as you see them for who they really are, that's what's important. That's what can help you heal and get away from that person. It's very hard to hear, and it hurts everyone. I hear it. I understand. 2 months after our separation, she's with someone, and I guess it's all up on me now. I would assume so, yes. I think I'm searching for confirmation that this was the type of relationship I had. Yeah, no, that's fair. I did the same thing. I had a session with Lee Hammock, mental illness, and I had a session with Manjeet Ruprai, who is Manjeet Ruprai. She wrote a book called The Survival Guide to Narcissistic and Abusive, or Narcissistic and Toxic Relationships, or something like that. I had sessions with both of them, and both of them were very validating. And that is also something I can do. If you want to have a session with me, we can talk about it. I'm not going to diagnose anybody. I cannot do that. I can't say, yeah, that person's abusive, but I can tell you what you're experiencing sounds like, it lines up with what, blah, blah, blah. But what I don't want to do, and this is the very dangerous thing about social media, is I don't want anyone listening to my podcast or coming into a live or watching my content, or doing that with Lee Hammock or Manjeet Ruprai or Lisa Sunny or whoever and saying, well, I saw Carrie McAvoy, or I saw Lisa Sunny, or I saw whoever, I saw Lindsay Goodman say this, you're abusive. Lindsay told me this, you're abusive, because that's very dangerous for you and it's very dangerous for me, right? So again, when we think someone might be abusive, we really want to keep that to ourselves, and we really want to just focus on getting away from that person. I live in the Netherlands. I don't think I can find anyone like the way you are talking. What do you mean? Find anyone like what? I'm not sure if that will help or hurt me. I'm just a huge critical thinker and need things to make sense. I've never said those things to her. She calls me that. I think that when we're in abusive relationships, we really do want to make sense of it, and our brains are scrambling to try to understand. And we're walking on eggshells, and we're in like go 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 mode all the time. I think that's completely normal for where you're at. It can become what we call rumination, where you're sort of like obsessing about it, and it's all you can think about, because our brains are trying to make sense of it. And so you could use some guidance in trying to make sense of things. I think that would be really helpful. If it's not me, I really recommend Trey De La Torre. He talks a lot about rumination, but that can be something that can really help you put your brain at ease and help you in your healing journey. Do you have tips of coming to terms with having parents that don't accept you for being LGBTQ? I'm very sorry. It's very difficult. I'm very lucky that my mom does accept me, so I don't have that experience personally. Try to find a community, and I know that can be easier said than done. If you can find even one person who does accept you, which I do, hopefully everyone else that's here now accepts you. Have a couple people that you can lean on and just be yourself around, even if it's not in person. It can be like you can make a anonymous Twitter account and start tweeting about being gay and stuff like that. And even if one person is like, I see you, that's something, right? Because a lot of times as LGBTQ folks, we have to create our own families, because our own families, our actual blood families, suck. Just like the GOP, their whole game plan is deny, gaslight, and project. Yep. I think I will try to book something with you. I appreciate it. I would love to. I will look forward to a possible email booking from you, and look forward to working with you. It does sound like this could be a really good fit for you, but again, it's your decision. Whatever you feel comfortable with. And I was spiraling this morning, so thanks for being live today. You know what? It's weird. Like I said, I haven't gone live very often, but whenever I do go live, usually there's the right person is in the room at the right time. It's really, really helped. I'm so glad. A big part of what they do is keeping people triggered and spiraling, doubting oneself. Amen. Do you still have struggles in life that are because of your trauma? No, I'm perfect now. I'm just kidding. I do. So I have worked very hard to not be around people who trigger. How do I say this? I've worked very hard to heal my triggers, because obviously if we try to avoid our triggers for the rest of our lives, it doesn't help us at all, because we can't guarantee that we're going to avoid it forever. For example, for a long time, I couldn't be around big dogs. And it's been very hard for me to do that. I wouldn't let my dog around big dogs. It's still very hard, but I work on it in safe places so that I can get better at that, right? Because I can't guarantee that I'm never going to have a big dog approach me, or my son, or my dog, right? So I have to work on that and, try to avoid something happening, but but do my best to try to heal that trigger, right? That was just an example. And so I've simultaneously removed people who I feel are abusive or toxic or stuck in their own trauma and unable to, I don't feel safe around you. So that's a lot of people. And so I have a very small pool of people that I'm around. And I taught myself to love my own company. And again, that doesn't mean that I'm reclusive. I'm not encouraging you to go live in a cave. There is a time that you may need to do that when you're healing, and that's perfectly fine. Let it happen and then come out, open up that cave door when you're ready, and start small. I do have triggers that I struggle with in my relationship with my son's dad, who I co-parent with. There are things that I still very much can very easily feel like I'm going to freak out about. But there aren't a lot of things in my life that I have sort of like visceral triggers to. Sorry, my nose is I've been crying a lot today. I'm having a hard time. My family's having a hard time. So that's been really hard lately. And I let myself cry. I'm not much of a crier, but I let it happen because it's very important. Our bodies they're set up to cry. So let it cry. But yeah, I don't have a lot of big things that really set me off, but I do have things that I do have flashbacks, and my flashbacks are very controlled. I'll have a memory and I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. And I, whatever, but there's not really anything in my life that I feel like sort of controls me or prevents me from doing anything. But you know what? Life is big and the world is big, and you never know what you're going to run into that you will realize was hiding in there, because our brains are very complex and very good at hiding things. So I said this in my podcast that I recorded today, but I don't believe in ever being healed. I believe in healing, because like I said, you never know you're going to see something, smell something, eat something, and you're going to be like, whoosh, whoa. If it's safe, journal or voice record after anything happens so you can remember how you actually felt. Yes, I agree. I am a huge, I guess, advocate for doing that kind of stuff. Again, if it's safe. If it's safe. I journaled a lot. I recorded a lot. Once I started realizing that I felt crazy and that person and I were not having the same experience of things, I did that, and it very much helped. But I did also journal in the very beginning, which also helped me to, in fact, I've been going through my drafts and deleting things because I do not have a lot of space on my phone. And come to find out, TikTok drafts take a lot of space. And I found one that has to do with journaling, and how I looked back on my journals to when I was with them, and how I had an aha moment of nothing has changed. I've been journaling about this problem for 2 years. I've been journaling about this problem for 1 year. Nothing changed. I should post that one. It's a good one. But yeah, journaling definitely can help you with cognitive dissonance and that confusion and, gaslighting and all of that stuff. Do you sometimes feel triggered by sessions you do because over empathy or something? There are certain things that can really bother me. I have never been triggered to the point where I was like, oh no, I'm triggered, I can't do this. But there have been times, and this is what I love about being a trauma recovery coach and not a therapist, is I'm allowed to be human too. So what I will do is I will say, just so you know, I also experienced something like that. And I feel like right now we might both be feeling triggered by what you just said, what you have been going through. Let's take a moment to feel that together and to reground ourselves before we keep talking. Because I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to say, this was very hard for you to talk about. This was very hard for me to hear because this is messed up. Let's ground ourselves together. We're here, right? That you feel very emotional by storytelling from others. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question. And then, of course, I do self-care. I am very selective about when I do coaching. I also, if you don't know this, my actual job is I'm a sign language interpreter. That is where I get my income from. And I keep my coaching spots limited, especially if I have a couple of ongoing clients. I don't take new clients because I want to be able to work with them through, if you don't know, I do a 6-week program. I want to work with them through their 6-week program. And then if they want to do another one, they get that priority. But I don't want to have a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of stories that I can't give my all to. And if I'm going through something really hard, you might not see my availability on there because if I'm not okay, I can't help you. I hope that makes sense. what I don't want to do is be like, again, I'm not anti-therapy, but I feel like a lot of therapists don't take care of themselves because they start to, okay, I'm just going to say it, they start to get a taste for all that money. Like if I either interpreted 5 days a week for bunches of hours, or if I coached 5 days a week for bunches of hours, I could have so much money. I could just be traveling all I want because I have all this money, but I refuse to do that because I want to take care of myself. And I want you to all see me taking care of myself and being honest with myself and loving myself, because I can't really help you if I feel like crap and I'm depressed and sad and struggling and I'm not sleeping and I'm not eating and I just went through a breakup, or my family's having a hard time, so my brain is all over there and I'm not actually listening to you because I'm like, is my sister okay? I don't know. That's when I'm going to do a pause on coaching because I can't be there for you. I hope that makes sense. I really want you all to trust me with yourselves and your stories and not feel like you're just another person, because yes, there are a lot of people who message me, a lot of people come into my lives, and on some level, you are just another person when you're just passing through, because it's impossible for me to sit across from all of you and have these in-depth conversations, because I have my kid, I have my jobs, I have all this other stuff, right? But when you're sitting across from me on the screen and I'm doing a one-on-one with you, I'm in that moment. And also, I will reschedule if something comes up and I can't do it, because I want you to feel cared for and held, and space is being held for you and all of that stuff. I'm not trying to just, yeah, I hope that makes sense. Do you do video call sessions because I live in the Netherlands? Yes, I do. All of my sessions are um, done on Zoom. And right now, you probably need some time to think about it. But if you want to catch me while I'm in Europe, that would be a time to do it, because we don't have to worry so much about the time change, because I think we're on the same time zone. But once I go back to the States, it is a little bit more difficult. But I have a lot of clients in Australia, and that is hard because they're waking up really early to try to meet with me, or staying up really late, or I'm staying up late or something like that. But I do try to make it work. And um, so I only interpret a couple of days a week, and I keep the rest of the time open for my son. He's homeschooled, and so I try to do that with him. But on those days, I can usually be flexible because there are going to be times that my son and I need a break from each other, and I can do that. So just message me if you're ever on and you're like, none of this works, and I try to find a time that works for both of us. Do you try natural ways to help with your depression? Just to clarify, I do not have depression. I've never been diagnosed with depression. I have been diagnosed with ADHD and PTSD, which my PTSD, it's CPTSD, you guys. It's not in the DSM-5. I've healed a lot from that. I can't diagnose myself. I would say that it's still going to be a healing journey, but like we're, I have had bouts of sadness, and I have had, when I'm in Washington, which is where I live, I'm not very happy with my life. But I do things to help myself enjoy my life better, if that makes sense. But I do not have depression. So I know I use that as an example, but I do not have depression. Again, I have PTSD and ADHD, neither of which are medicated. I don't have a lot of bouts of really depressed downness. And so I don't like to use that, because I know a lot of people will misuse things like bipolar and depression and things like that. I just feel depressed today. I don't like to say that, because I don't know what it's actually like to feel depressed and not be able to get out of, I've had those times, right? But not depression. So anyway, I hope that clarifies. But if anyone in here has tips for that, please do share them. I don't want to answer that because like I said, I don't know what it's like, except for small bouts, like when I've experienced a loss, or like when I was breaking the trauma bond, where it was like, I can't get out of bed, I can't function, I can't eat, I can't take care of my kid, things like that. So I guess I could answer what helped me during those times, but I still don't think it's quite the same. Sounds basic, but prioritize outdoor time, get your sunlight. I can get behind that. Get outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight. Put your feet in the grass or the sand. I like to really slow down and just touch things. Do you experience nightmares about the abusive relationship? I did when I first left. I don't very much anymore. Every once in a while, they pop into my dreams, and it'll be something weird. And I'll wake up and I'll just be like, okay, that was not good. Hopefully, I don't have another dream like that for a while. How long is normal to still think about the relationship, even if it's been over a year since I left? I do not like the word normal. Thank you for asking. That's a really good question. I don't like that we as a society think that there's like a cut and dry answer to things like that. But again, very good question. Um, it's been in August, it will be 2 years since we broke up, and in October, it'll be 2 years no contact. And I want to tell you right now that I do not think about my abuser except when I am talking about them because I'm sharing with you examples, I'm trying to educate on things like that. Then it's like, yeah, this is what I was going through at the time. In my day to day life, I don't sit here and like dwell on it or things like that. I do have little, like I said, I might see something that reminds me a couple weeks ago, and I talked about it publicly. I don't remember if it was my Instagram stories or what. I got onto an escalator, and it was like the flat, like it was the entrance into a supermarket. And I went over to tie my shoe, and I was like, fudge. I had a memory of when I was in Mexico with my abuser on our Save the Relationship trip, which didn't save the relationship. There was a lot of abuse on that trip, and it just set me back further in trying to leave. And I shared that. And I think I made a Monday mini episode about that for the podcast. And I talked about how, it's completely normal for us to have flashbacks and have memories and still think about things years after the fact because it's very random. We were together basically since high school. It's very random and it's not something we can control. We cannot force our brains to never see or smell or feel or hear things again that remind us of our abusers. I'll give you another one. I was at my favorite place in Spain, and a song came on that reminded me of a very specific moment. We were in the back seat, our friends were driving. A song came on, we were singing. It was actually a silly, fun memory. Our friends laughed at us because we were both being very silly. Again, there was abuse happening on that trip as well. But that song came on in like a remix, and I was watching like beautiful view in Spain, and they had like a cycling class there, which I wish I could have been a part of, but I didn't have shoes and I didn't know they were having it, having the class. And I was like, look how far you've come. Like I had that memory. And it's been almost 2 years. Things are going to happen and it's completely normal. And especially with abuse. But again, like I might think of I talked about this a while ago. I don't know how long we've been in here. I might think of the boyfriend that I had 12 years ago. I met someone from Glasgow the other day and he crossed my mind because he's from Scotland. And I went to Glasgow and I went to Scotland to visit him and I thought of him. Does that mean I'm obsessed with him? No. Does that mean that I would go back in time and be with him? No. Does that mean I still care about him? No. I hope he's okay. I genuinely hope that he's doing really well because he was an incredible person. But it's normal. We're humans. It's normal for us to think about people from our past. What we don't want to do is be ruminating and stuck, constantly thinking about them. We do want to, work on getting past that and getting to a place that they are just crossing our minds. Book, thank you. Oh, I am so excited to work with you. I know that sounds weird. I'm hopeful for you. I'm very hopeful for you. And I really hope that I can help you. And I'm very, very thankful for your trust in me. So thank you for booking. Did your abuser try to contact you? I'm sorry. Try to contact again, and how do you respond to it? So my abuser is blocked on everything. And okay, perfect. Blocked on everything. And so when I first left, I didn't know that you could block people from your phone. I didn't know you could block people on email. And so when I stopped responding to them via text, they started emailing me. They emailed me for a while. But it was just stupid stuff like, what do you want from our house? Do you want this furniture or that furniture? When are you coming home? let me know so I can get out. It was just like maybe once every couple of days they would email me. When they finally moved out, they stopped doing that, thankfully. And then I received like 2 texts. Like I came back in December. They messaged me in January and April, and then I never heard from them again. I did run into them at a coffee shop once. They came in, they saw me, they looked like a deer in the headlights, and then I just looked at them like this. Like literally dead face. I just was like, and then they turned around and left the coffee shop. So that is my experience. I feel very lucky that they have left me alone. I feel like there are some things that sort of guaranteed that I did or didn't do that sort of guaranteed that this specific person would leave me alone. But I don't share those things because I can't guarantee that your abuser is going to do the same thing. I don't say, this is what worked for me to keep my abuser away, because I don't really know what's the thing that kept them away from me. I can only guess. But yes, I'm very lucky. And how do you respond to it is you don't respond. When they reach out to you, whatever they reach out to you on, block them. And don't read their messages. Like if you get a voicemail come through, don't listen to it. Just delete it, because it's not helping you at all to have that contact from them. Is that considered PTSD? So I'm not going to answer that specifically yes or no, because I cannot diagnose people and I can't say like, yes, you have PTSD, yes or no. But a part of what comes with PTSD, CPTSD, is yes, thoughts popping into your head, like unwanted thoughts, memories, flashbacks, things like that, dreams, all that stuff. But I do want to say that can also be normal. Again, I don't have PTSD from my Scottish boyfriend, but like I said, I thought about him the other day when I met someone from Glasgow. So again, it's human for us to remember and think about people that we have interacted with in our lives, right? But when it's an abusive person and it's like popping into our heads like that, PTSD is likely a likely candidate. How do you deal with a partner who gets mad at you for expressing they hurt you and then uses Darvo? You get away from that partner. I am not the person who's going to say, just leave, dump them, blah, blah, blah. That's not helpful. But if you're experiencing someone who is using Darvo, who's punishing you for being hurt by what they did, all of that stuff, you've got to try to start working your way away from that person, because they're not going to stop doing that. And it's no way for you to live. Funny, you have the last name of my abuser. We're talking about abuser. My nephew. Well, hello to your nephew. Hello to nephew Goodman. I love my last name. What's the difference between PTSD and CPTSD? Great question. CPTSD is complex PTSD. PTSD, and so a lot of people have a lot of confusion when it comes to those two things. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go in a minute. I just had an update on my nephew who's not doing very well. And so I don't feel like I can continue with this. Please pray for my nephew or send good vibes if that is something that you do. He's in the hospital right now. I'm not going to say more because it's not my story to tell. But I'm going to go and I'm going to do some self-care. And but yes, I would love some healing energy for my sister and her baby. The difference between PTSD and CPTSD is PTSD is typically something that comes from like a one-time event, a car accident, SHOOTING. If you are a part of that, that is PTSD. That is a one-time event that has a beginning and an end. Horrible. A lot of people say that veterans have PTSD. They have CPTSD, I promise you, because complex PTSD is something that has happened over and over and over again. It's just like long amounts of time. There's no specific beginning and an end, right? And so it's very complex to heal from as well. So most of you, if you have experienced abuse, if you get diagnosed with PTSD, you have CPTSD, because CPTSD is not in the DSM-5. So your diagnosis will be PTSD, but PTSD is now understood and they're trying to get that changed in the DSM-5. But for now, that's all we have. PTSD is, again, one horrible could be too jarring thing that happened to you, but really isn't something that's happening over time, but you still are, okay, I'll tell you right now. Something horrible happened to my dog right in front of me, and I had and still have some symptoms of, but it's much calmer now. It's been 4 years since she passed. PTSD from the moment that that thing happened to her. And again, I couldn't be around other dogs for a long time. That was PTSD. Start, finish. One time thing. CPTSD is something that's happening over and over and over again. So thank you for your question. Thank you so much for your kind thoughts for my nephew. I'm going to go and I am going to let myself just like break here for a little bit. Yeah, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for trusting me. I'll be back when I can be back. Thank you for explaining as well. You're very welcome. Thank you for asking. Thank you for hanging out. Again, book a session with me if you want to work through some more stuff. I'm here for all of you. And not right now. Right now, I can't help anyone. That's why I'm going. That was it for me. But if you want to check out, go to thelindsaygoodman.com or calendly.com/Lindsay Goodman and book an appointment with me. I'd love to work with some of you through some of this some more when I can and when you can. So please go take care of yourselves. I'm going to do the same. Thank you for the love. I will see you all later.